tonight, fears for the future. Scots Israelis and Scots Iranians say they're worried and concerned about their loved ones' safety.
It was very frightening and stressful, and it's very uncomfortable because you can imagine that those ballistic missiles who come over.
Also making the headlines, a special report from Glenorchy Prison. It's home to some of Scotland's most notorious murderers and sex offenders, but it's struggling to cope with rising numbers of prisoners in their 70s, 80s and 90s. In sport, the new Rangers chairman Andrew Kavanagh says they're relishing the challenge of toppling Celtic. And the feline friend helping this 10-year-old find his way to school every day. I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Scots with family members caught up in the Iran-Israeli conflict say they're scared and anxious as the two countries continue to engage in airstrikes. The First Minister has called for a diplomatic solution after the US strikes on Iran's nuclear programme over the weekend. Now, Iranian military say they'll decide the timing, nature and scale of a proportionate response. Meanwhile, there are reports of explosions being heard in Doha, the capital of Qatar, which is home to a US airbase. Caitlin Hutchison reports.
Waves of strikes between Israel and Iran have now lasted 10 days, impacting tens of thousands of civilians. David got home to Scotland from Israel last night, but now watches and worries for his children still there.
At the beginning it was very frightening and stressful. When the government gave us the order, go to the bomb shelter, and we got 10 minutes to go to the bomb shelter before the missile will come. You cannot use to the noise, you cannot use to the bomb, and then you go out, and then you go to sleep in your bed, and you are not sure what time the next missile will come.
It's obviously very stressful, and we've seen missiles destroy entire streets, and people have been killed, and obviously hundreds of people have been injured. It's really important that people remember that there is a difference between governments and individual civilians who deserve to be, treated with humanity and respect.
In Iran, the airspace remains closed and there has been a near total internet shutdown. Many Scottish Iranians are terrified to speak to the media for fear of reprisals by the Tehran regime. We've spoken to Mehdi, who lives in Glasgow and last spoke to his relatives 2 days ago. We've changed his name and voice to protect his identity.
There's more internet restrictions than ever. There's no information getting in and out. Even communication between people in Iran is difficult. I'm worried for their safety, now more so than ever, because it's completely unstable. The war's not near finished yet. What if there's more retaliation? But after all the pain and agony the country's gone through, there's a bit of hope that something can change.
Today, the First Minister said the Scottish Government is working with the Foreign Office to make sure all Scots in the area are properly and fully supported. The first British nationals have now been evacuated from Israel, but the Foreign Secretary says the UK government's ability to support citizens in Iran is extremely limited.
We need to see the situation de-escalated, and the international community must use every device and every intervention at its disposal to make sure that's the case.
I can confirm to the House that a Royal Air Force A400 has flown in to Tel Aviv and taken 63 British nationals and their dependents to Cyprus, from where they will be brought home this evening. Further flights will follow in the coming days, security allowing.
British nationals in Qatar, home to the largest US military base in the Middle East, have now been advised to shelter until further notice. Meanwhile, international calls grow louder for diplomacy, de-escalation and an urgent return to the negotiating table. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News.
STV News has been given special access to Glenorchy Prison, where they're struggling to deal with the complex medical needs of prisoners in their 70s, 80s and even 90s. Social care staff work alongside regular wardens in the jail, but the costs of that specialist care are rising as the country's ageing prison population grows. Louis Scott reports.
prisons are bursting at the seams.
Yeah, bro, listen, South Grand.
Struggling to cope with rising numbers. We were given exclusive access to Glenacle Prison, to the wing housing some of Scotland's most notorious sex offenders and murderers. So don't be fooled by the quiet nature of this hall. Its silence speaks to the number of prisoners growing old within these walls, none of whom would speak to us about the conditions.
There's a lot of people that don't want to work in this flat, simply because of the type of prisoners we've got, the age of the prisoners we've got. We had one recently that just passed away a couple of weeks ago. He was well in his late 80s.
And not what you're trained to be dealing with?
No,
you're not in a hospital?
No, you're not a hospital, you're in a care home. But
you feel like one?
It's getting more and more like a care home.
How you been feeling today? You all right?
It's shaky.
Right, shaky.
This is a side of prison you don't normally see, where agency social care staff are working 24/7 alongside prison officers. They wanted us to witness the pressures they face. It's care that vulnerable older people in the community often miss out on, but while in custody, there's no choice but to provide it.
Right, we'll pop back just shortly and see you. Are you needing anything else?
What are some of the challenges of providing social care in a prison setting?
Well, for example, I mean, if you take a look in here, obviously it's just a 4x4 kind of cell. There's 2 to a cell, and if you're providing care and things like that, trying to get like a hoist in can be very, very difficult.
And sharing this cell is a man in his 70s and another in his 80s.
They get stressed with it, and we understand that. They know that there's nothing else that we can do. If they've got dementia and stuff like that, you know, they can kick off at any moment in time. But that's why we've got our officers here.
The idea of a prison care home?
Oh, that'd be a great idea, definitely. You wouldn't have 70-year-olds climbing up in bunk beds.
The cost of this care is crippling for the prison service. In Scotland alone, it rose 450% in just over 5 years to almost £2.9 million.
Over the past 15 years, the number of prisoners aged over the age of 50 has trebled here, meaning that age group makes up for more than a quarter of the whole prison population at Glenacle. With that brings extra complex care and mobility needs, putting pressure on an already overstretched prison and healthcare system.
That's a challenge Glenocle's governor is grappling with each day.
So we have in total 700 prisoners within here.
As her population exceeds capacity.
Here is one of the examples we have of our accessible cells that we've had to make some adaptations to. So prior to this, it had double beds in it.
So we need 2 people in here?
Yeah, it would be bunk beds in here. So effectively, it's taken away 1 bed, so that reduces my overall design capacity within the prison.
The only way to get a hospital bed into
It's the only way
cell.
to be able to care for the person and make sure that their needs is met.
I'm just going to get some cream on your back, pal, right?
Removing over 60s from this prison would put Glenacle below capacity. The governor believes it's time to radically rethink the system for this age group.
It may be that actually less secure facilities is an option and it would be more suitable, or indeed is it appropriate that we manage these people in the community.
And what difference do you think that would make to the prison and what you're able to do on a day-to-day basis?
I think the less people we have in prison, the more we can look after the people who really do need to be in prison.
But some would argue these prisoners should be serving their entire sentence locked up, whether it's suitable or not.
I fully appreciate some of the society's view on that, but these people can still be safely managed in a far less secure environment. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're required to be accommodated in a prison.
This is a system at breaking point, no longer fit for purpose, unable to cater for this growing and ageing population while putting excessive strain on staff.
And Louise is here with us. And Louise, these are some of Scotland's most notorious prisoners.
They are. Many viewers will know their names from committing some of Scotland's most horrific crimes. I was quite literally shocked by some of the faces I saw on this wing. Some sentenced to decades, so growing old there. Others sentenced later in life with historic crimes. But in parts, it would be easy to mistake it for being in a care home due to the frailty.
And of course, just like the rest of the prison population, the numbers of prisoners needing this sort of care is growing all the time. So what's being done about it?
Well, the Scottish Government is looking at the prison system as a whole. As you say, emergency release is really only scratching the surface when it comes to overcrowding within these institutions. But prisons are not built for an older prisoner, and so that is one of the options being looked at, a whole different establishment that could house older prisoners, that social care could be concentrated on one place rather than spread across every institution, which again would then reduce costs. But it's clear this needs to be looked at soon, as the population is only increasing across Scottish prisons.
Louise, thank you. A Scottish wingsuit diver has died during a jump in the Swiss Alps. Liam Byrne was flying in the mountain range on Saturday with friends before going off course. The 24-year-old from Stonehaven in Aberdeenshire was a British champion in the sport. Swiss police are investigating the incident. The Scottish Secretary says the UK government is working every day to try to secure more investment in the Alexander Dennis bus factory and at the site of the Grangemouth oil refinery. Alexander Dennis said earlier this month it plans to close its operations in Falkirk and Larbert, with up to 400 jobs at risk. But speaking at the launch of the new industrial strategy, Ian Murray offered some reassurance.
Well, we're 10 months into this government, and we're not only putting forward strategies like the industrial strategy, we're putting our money where our mouth is. Public money is going in to support industries to have that growth for the future. And of course, in Grangemouth and in Alexander Dennis, the government are working day to day to make sure we can get much more into those particular sites so we don't lose the jobs at Alexander Dennis, and the Grangemouth site has a much brighter future. That's what the industrial strategy is all about.
Tributes have been paid to Celtic's European Cup winning Lisbon Lion John Clark, who has died at the age of 84. Clark won 12 major honours, including 4 league titles, making more than 300 appearances for the club. The Celtic manager, Brendan Rodgers, praised his contribution, saying Clark was an inspiration. Ollie Dickinson has more.
It is a measure of how much of a Celtic man John Clark was that the defender, who had won the greatest honour in their history in Lisbon, returned to be a kit man and serve the club. The defender won every major domestic honour in the green and white hoops and achieved legendary status as part of the Lisbon Lions.
Billy McNeill and his magnificent men earned the thanks and admiration of their native Glasgow, Scotland and the whole United Kingdom.
If it's possible to be a football icon, immortalised because of one afternoon in Lisbon, and yet be a totally unassuming human being at the same time, then that was John Clark. John Clark, Celtic was a way of life for him. Playing for Celtic was a vocation.
Hey, inside to Clark.
Clark would play 4 times for Scotland before ending his playing career with Greenock Morton. He had spells in coaching, including at Celtic alongside Billy McNeill, then managing at Cowdenbeath, Stranraer and Clyde. But Clark couldn't resist the allure of the East End and returned to Celtic, this time as kitman, a role he served for almost 20 years.
I love it, and that's the answer to you. I love this job. I think the present day football is it's more demanding in every aspect of the game, you know.
He spent decades working for the club. He was devoid of ego and devoted to Celtic. He went from being a Lisbon Lion, an icon, an immortal, to being the kit man, making sure that the jerseys were washed and ironed properly. Now you have to be devoted to your club to be that way.
Clark's dedication and love for the club was clear. He was recognised with Celtic's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004. A Celtic man through and through, forever immortalised as a Lisbon Lion.
Tributes to Lisbon Lion John Clark, who has died at the age of 84. Raman's here. I hesitate to say it, Raman, but they don't make them like that anymore.
Absolutely, John. A nicer guy on the beat you couldn't meet. I remember first meeting John Clark when he was a kit man when Martin O'Neill was the manager. I was like, that's Lisbon Lion John Clark. He had that bit of aura about him. Quiet, unassuming chap, but always had time for you. And of course he had Celtic running through his veins. First a player, Lisbon Lion, assistant manager, then comes back as a kit man. What a guy he was.
Yeah, and I hope that paid tribute to him very well, I think. And in today's sport, you've been talking to the new Rangers owners.
That's right. Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marathi, who led a US consortium last month, led them to a Rangers takeover, 51% stake in the club they have. They addressed shareholders at the club's extraordinary general meeting today, where their investment was rubber stamped, and they also spoke to the media after it.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Good evening. Yes, Rangers chairman Andrew Kavanagh says the club's new owners are relishing the challenge of toppling Celtic and believes this can be achieved next season. Kavanagh, who headed a US consortium which took control of Rangers last month, also revealed why Russell Martin was their outstanding candidate to be appointed head coach.
So let me be clear about our ambitions.
Delivering their American dream. Rangers' new owners addressed shareholders at the club's extraordinary general meeting today, kicking off on a lighter note.
I think I'm supposed to sit, but sitting here looking out, I figured it wasn't the right way to start this relationship by us starting in a low block.
Before their £20 million investment into the club was rubber stamped. The pair then hot-footed it to Ibrox. While cameras were permitted to film the photo call, the media briefing was off-camera. First up, can Rangers win the league next season and topple Celtic to become the #1 team in the country? Kavanagh said, "There's real work to be done. I think everybody is aware of that. Parag and I are two of the least patient people you'll meet, and we're also incredibly competitive, so we share our supporters' sense of urgency," adding, "We relish that challenge. Rangers and Celtic is one of the world's top 5 rivalries. It's fantastic to have that rivalry." Kavanagh says his life changed when he received a call in October last year over the possibility of investing in Rangers. While seeking instant success, the US health tycoon says the new owner's vision is long-term and they have no exit plan. The players return for pre-season training today as Russell Martin gets to work with his squad. Appointing Martin as the club's new head coach is the consortium's biggest call yet. Kavanagh says there were 4 criteria they looked at for a head coach. Somebody who would coach a particular style of play, building a specific culture at the club, developing talent, and winning matches. Kavanagh says Martin was a standout across all of those metrics. He was, however, less forthcoming when asked how much of the £20 million of investment would go towards Martin's transfer budget. One former Rangers chairman gave his take on those now running the club.
They've got a plan, they've got a strategy, and they've got experience to back up the strategy. And I think that we will be moving into the next century, literally with respect to analytics and evaluation of players.
The Rangers takeover has given fans new hope at Ibrox. It's now time for the club's new owners to deliver. And we also spoke to Parag Marathi, the new Rangers vice chairman. Got it there in the end, and you can hear what he had to say on our social networks tomorrow at noon. On to news from Hibernian now, and David Gray says missing out on guaranteed European League phase football doesn't take anything away from Hibs' outstanding season last term. The Edinburgh club enters the Europa League qualifiers with a tough tie against Midtjylland of Denmark in July, and Gray is looking for constant improvement from his team going into the new season. Here's Jamie Borthwick.
He's the toast of the Hibs fans after guiding the team to 3rd place in the Premiership. David Gray was the centre of attention at the club's annual Ron Gordon Football Festival as excitement builds for the next season, despite Aberdeen's dramatic Scottish Cup victory snatching away the lucrative guarantee of league phase European football.
It doesn't take away from what we done last season at all, and that's what I'm very quick to remind the players. We had a fantastic season, finished 3rd and rightly so. The league does not lie by the end of the season, but the challenge now for myself, for the staff, for the players is to make sure we keep improving, because the league is so tough. The teams coming up are going to add to that, and you've obviously seen there's new managers in place that are going to want to implement their own styles as well, so it's going to be a really competitive, it always is.
Club captain Joe Newell hopes to be fit for the return of the Premiership season, and he's excited to see the team go up against strong European opposition in Midtjylland next month.
That's what you worked so hard for last year. That's why we dug in and done so well in the end, because you want these rewards of these European nights. You don't expect to play a team that's rubbish there. You're going to get a good opposition. So no, you've got to thrive on it. We've had some amazing European nights here over the last few years, so hopefully we can add to that.
Positive talks are ongoing with Rocky Bushiri and Nectarios Triantis over returns to the club, and Gray is also looking to bolster his attacking options this summer.
I'm delighted for what we've already got in there. You even think back to, Kieran Bowie. He'll massively benefit from a real strong pre-season. We hope we can get him through that. Also, international recognition in the summer for him, his first full cap, which is brilliant for him. Delighted we kept Martin Boyle for what he does, how much he impacts the Scottish game, which is great. But we know we need to strengthen that position.
Gray defied expectation in his first year as head coach. Now he's ready to take the next step. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
Brian Graham has told STV Sport he did turn down the chance to manage Partick Thistle on a permanent basis last month, but is now ready to make his mark at Falkirk. Graham, who spent 5.5 years at Firhill as a player before being appointed interim Thistle player boss in the second half of last season, has signed a one-year deal with the Bairns, with the club having the option of another year.
Obviously a lot had happened at Partick Thistle and I'd went through the interview process, was offered the role, but when I knocked it back, I knew it was going to be difficult for me to go back in the changing room. I'd said that publicly. If I didn't get the job, I didn't take the job, that was always going to be really difficult. And that's how I seen it. It was a really hard decision because, listen, when you've been at a club for 5.5 years, you fall in love with the place.
To rugby, and George Turner says he's targeting hitting 50 caps for Scotland after returning from a year playing in Japan. The 32-year-old put his international career on hold to spend a season playing for the Kobe Steelers. Now he has returned to the UK to sign for Harlequins. Turner is back in the Scotland fold for the summer tour to New Zealand and Fiji.
I want to hit 50 caps for a while, and I kind of, I'm nearly there. So I think that's a good driving force. And I'm getting older, but I'm still young enough to. I've got a few more years left. But no, it was a really cool year for us, and I'm from rugby as well, to experience that kind of bit more fast-paced, loose, crazy rugby.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
And some news from St Mirren and Motherwell before I go. The Saints have signed Liam Donnelly. That after the midfielder's contract at Kilmarnock came to an end, while Motherwell have appointed former Wigan coach Max Rogers as their new assistant manager. That, folks, is STV Sport tonight. See you again tomorrow. John.
Brian, thank you. Straight to the weather now with Sean.
Midday Mayan temples, followed by sunny afternoons on the sand. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. Well, after that very warm weather last week, I thought it'd be worth having a look at the long-term temperature trend into the first week there of July. And you can see generally no return to very warm and hot conditions. Temperatures mostly around average, apart from this spike here, early part of next week, around this time next week. There is the possibility temperatures could reach the mid-20s once again, but a bit of a one-day wonder. And of course, it's a big week for the schools, pupils, teachers. The holidays start for some of us this week. And the weather just gets back to pretty much what it should be, with sunshine and showers and temperatures around average. So no great shakes just yet, no paddling pools getting out, I don't think just yet, but let's keep our fingers crossed for a little bit later on July. For the time being though, we've got outbreaks of rain out there tonight. Temperatures about 12 or 13, but the rain will start to turn a bit more persistent by the end of the night. Quite a showery and damp start to tomorrow, but hopefully in the afternoon we should see some brighter sunny spells breaking through and becoming drier across Ayrshire, South Lanarkshire, the borders. But elsewhere, even though we do see the sunshine breaking through, there'll still be some scattered showers. And look at the temperatures last week. Remember on the map I had 28, 29, some spots. Tomorrow we're about 14 to 17 degrees Celsius, so certainly a lot fresher. Temperatures may be about the high teens in some spots on Wednesday, but there'll be a lot of cloud and some drizzly outbreaks of rain, especially Stirlingshire, the Highlands and Argyll. Sunshine and showers for Thursday, and the risk that some of the showers will be on the heavy side. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, the school run is routine every morning for thousands of children across the country. But in Glasgow, one route has also become a daily habit for a friendly feline. Our reporter Raheem Cham has been along to meet Kiki and her owner as they started their day.
It's 8 a.m. and Kiki, along with 10-year-old Sonny, are getting ready for the school day. For the last 18 months, Kiki has been by Sonny's side on his walk to school and back. Sometimes she sprints ahead, leaving him trailing behind. But they've always made the journey together. That dedication has earned Kiki a 100% attendance award from the head teacher at Kelvindale Primary.
One day we opened the door and then she ran out. And as I was coming down to school, I noticed that she was right behind me, following me. And it really made me quite shocked. I was very excited. It was quite a nice moment. On the odd occasions, she will come into classes and I have to remove her, which is quite a funny thing to do.
It's also made Sonny something of a celebrity at school.
Well, I think the fact that Kiki's been in the school, it has definitely made me more popular. It's quite a nice experience every day because children are coming up to me that I've never spoken to, talking about Kiki. It's very nice. I think I have a very lovely bond with Kiki. It's quite a complicated bond. She's a very strange cat, but yeah, we have a very good bond.
At home or on the school run, the pair are practically inseparable. Raheem Cham, STV News, Glasgow.
What a perfect wee story. Come on, I had to say something. That's it from us here. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.